Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our weekly office hours. Today, we're going to be focused on explaining how to accelerate your sales cycles using interactive sales assets, particularly follow ups. I am George Soto, one of the co-founders here at AssetMule, joined by my co-founder Justin Dorfman, who's also our CEO. So he should have white hair here pretty soon.
Or
Tuning
less
in from
hair,
Italy, or less hair. That's
or
true.
more hair now that I'm in
Or
Italy,
that's true, right?
eating
Like
good food.
Italy. That's right. My dad has this thing. He goes, "The art of doing nothing" is what he says. He goes,
Yeah,
apparently it's a
it's an art for sure, and the
yeah,
Italians do it very well.
doing
They
really
have
well, right?
siesta here after lunch. Um, it's an art for sure.
Awesome. Well, for the folks out there, if you have not joined our office hours in the past, basically we'll do a couple things. We'll start off just kind of giving you a strategy, approach, workflow, use case for the week. Again, in this case, it's going to be really helping you think about how do I accelerate your sales cycle, again, using interactive sales assets, which we love here at AssetMule. And then we're going to dive in tactically, and then we're going to also take questions. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn or Twitter, go ahead and comment. Post your questions. If you have feedback, if you hear something and you're like, BS, guys, I don't think so, let us know. We're totally wanting to constantly learn, and maybe we have a blind spot. So totally open to that. And without further ado, Justin, maybe we can dive into the topic of the week.
Yeah, for sure. So this is an interesting one, and I think it's worth taking a step back and just talking about how sales has, especially B2B sales, has changed in the last decade or so, right? And you know, we hear it all the time, right? Over 80% of the sales process now happens without the salesperson in the room, right? And we also hear that there are more stakeholders involved in a sale than ever before. I think the last I saw, Gartner had said between 5 and 12 stakeholders, right? So this begs the question, how does a salesperson stay relevant or continue to influence the success of a deal when they're in the room less and there's more people to sell, right? And I think the big shift is from sales enablement to buyer enablement, right? That's kind of the key to overcoming some of these challenges and actually making it into a strength. And what do we mean by buyer enablement? It's essentially turning your prospect into a champion and giving them all the information they need to sell on your behalf when you're not in the room, right? And as all these different stakeholders become involved, as their boss comes involved, and then there's maybe the CFO becomes involved, and various other stakeholders within the organization. So that's exactly the use case that we're focusing on today, and not just how a sales rep can remain influential and relevant in this new world, but also how they could actually use buyer enablement to accelerate sales cycles and be even more successful than they were ever before. And a really great example of this is one of our customers and how they've used interactive sales assets to really drive this process. So one of our customers came to us the other week and said, hey, by the way, I'm really excited with, how we've been using AssetMule and the success we've been seeing, and I wanted to share it with you. We're actually seeing, this particular customer is an enterprise, they have an enterprise sales motion. They're selling 6-figure deals, and they've found that using interactive sales assets, they've been able to decrease their sales cycle by up to 66%. So that's 1/3. Their sales cycle is now 1/3 what it was before. And the reason why they're able to do this is these interactive sales assets, they're adding layers to them as the sales process proceeds. They're adding layers to add more information, more data points, and more social proof, so that as their champion goes from themselves to their boss and other stakeholders and the CFO, they're able to provide the information that those stakeholders need in order to sign off on the deal. And there's no need to bring those stakeholders in the room and schedule a call, which can take, in some cases, getting a call or a meeting with the CFO, right? They're busy folks. It can take weeks, right? Instead, being able to do it in this asynchronous way has really led to a faster sales process. So what we're going to do today is actually walk through the exact template that they're using and that we've since published into our asset library for you guys to use as well, and adapt from to speed up your own sales cycles. So I'm going to share my screen now. And George, let me know when it can be seen by everybody. All good?
Yep. See it now.
Perfect. So for those not familiar with AssetMule, what AssetMule is, it's a platform to help you easily and quickly build personalized, interactive, and trackable sales assets. And every account comes with a library of pre-designed templates that you can use, anything from one-pagers to case studies, competitive pages, proposals, and so on. And we're continuing to build out this library. More recently, what we've been really focusing on are templates that are built around the best practices that we're seeing with some of our customers. So in the last office hour, we focused on outbound and how some of our customers are using these interactive assets to support their outbound strategy. And today we'll be diving into these follow-up templates that are designed to be sent post maybe discovery call or demo, and then used throughout the sales process to layer in information that can enable that buyer, that prospect, to move the deal forward on your behalf, supported by the salesperson. So the one that I'll walk through today is this follow-up with interactive demo. And I'll start by walking you through the actual template with placeholder copy in here. And then I'll actually show you a version that we've created with our own content in it that we use for our own sales process at AssetMule. But you'll see from the get-go, this is a highly personalized asset, right? It's got a space for you to add your logo and add the prospect's logo, and then add a personalized welcome message, maybe thanking your prospect for their time and giving them a brief overview of what this asset is. You can also drop in, as you'll see here, a quick, 1 minute, 2 minute Loom video or Vidyard video. Basically, again, thanking them for their time and stepping them through sort of what they can find on this page. From there, you've got a recap of the priorities and the challenges that you've identified with that prospect, and a list of things that make your solution the right fit, and how you can help them solve those problems or those challenges and achieve those goals that they've set out for themselves. You can then include an interactive demo of your product right in the asset. And again, if this is something that's going to be sent throughout their organization, I remember, when I was a sales rep, having to schedule maybe 3, 4, 5 meetings where I was showing this demo. And now you can actually include that in the asset itself that can be passed around, and everybody can get a feel for what the product can actually do. And you can still set up those demo calls, by the way, but at least this gives them a sense of what everything is and how it's relevant to those goals and those challenges that they stated. You can then highlight some of those results and those KPIs that you're seeing with your customers, add some social proof in terms of customer logos and quotes. And then this is where throughout the sales process, you can start to layer in additional information that they might be needing, that your champion might be needing to sort of sell on your behalf, right? Things like the recording of the demo, or a couple of case studies that you've identified that are relevant to their use case or goals, pricing information. And I'll show you in our version, we have even more stuff that we're using to sort of feed the sales process through each stage. And then finally, a calendar that you can embed right in the asset, so that if there is a follow-up conversation that needs to happen, there's no calendar ping pong going on here. Straight from the asset, they can find a time that works for you and schedule that right from the asset. So that is the template here. And as I mentioned, we have our own version that we use here at AssetMule. It's our AssetMule follow-up asset. And I'm actually going to create an asset from it right now and show you, how I would go about personalizing this for a particular prospect after a discovery call or a demo. So let's say my prospect is Gong. So I'd go ahead and throw in their logo here to start. And I can go and download it and upload it and so on. But what AssetMule does that's really a time saver for me is it actually allows me to put in a URL for any company here and actually fetch logos directly from here and just pull in the one that I want to use. No need to go out and search for it. And then I would personalize this welcome message. I'd put in their name. Let's say their name is Jane. And then, I have some placeholder copy here, but I might fine tune it for their particular use case and so on. And then again, I may record a quick Loom video and drop that in here for them. Again, I have a couple of placeholders for priorities and challenges that tend to be pretty common across our ideal customer profile, but I want to sort of fine tune this based on the specific conversation I had with them. And again, some key sort of common ways that AssetMule helps our ICP that I might want to fine tune for their specific use case and needs. I then got my interactive demo in here, and we may save some of these into our snippet library. So a snippet library in AssetMule is basically the ability to save these micro bits of content into a library. And maybe there are different versions of the AssetMule interactive demo that I have for different use cases or different personas or different industries, excuse me, that I might save into my library and swap in the right one very quickly for that particular prospect. I then got our key results or KPIs that we tend to focus on. So again, we're selling interactive assets. So really talking about how these interactive assets drive more views, more engagement, and ultimately more conversions than traditional PDFs and so on. We've got some quotes in here, some logos and quotes in here. And again, this is another place where we may want to personalize and use that snippet library to do so by swapping in maybe a different set of logos by industry or also maybe by company size, and then quotes as well. You'll see I have a quote in here, but maybe there's a different quote that I want to pull in that might be a better fit for that particular prospect and the goals and the needs that they stated with us. And then these are actually the links that that we have by default in our assets. But what I tend to do is start with a couple ones so that's not really information overload for them. So usually after a demo, I'll follow up with a demo recording and maybe a case study in here. If I've identified a particular competitor that they're evaluating alongside AssetMule, I'll include a competitive comparison page. And these don't have to be AssetMule assets. For instance, the demo recording could be a Zoom link. The case study, it can be a case study built in AssetMule, as is ours, but it could also be a link to a case study page or article on your website. And then again, the competitive comparison page, it could be an AssetMule asset built from one of our templates like ours. Or again, if you have a page on your site, an alternatives page, you can put the link there. And then as we go through the sales process, right, maybe there's a CFO that we need to bring on board and sort of really get them on board with buying, in our case, AssetMule, right? So I may generate a ROI calculator. A lot of our customers are doing that just using a Google Sheets spreadsheet. So you can link that in here. And then eventually, when we're getting deeper into that evaluation stage, we want to put together a proposal that sort of highlights the exact solution that we've put together for this particular prospect and what that pricing information is going to look like and what that implementation plan or mutual action plan is going to be. And again, these can be built in AssetMule or elsewhere. You just need them to be a web-based link that you can then put in here. And then finally, what I really like to do is create a FAQ. And again, could be a Google Sheet, a simple Google Sheet, or it could be built in AssetMule like we do. And as those questions come up throughout the sales process, you can sort of answer those questions asynchronously in this FAQ asset. And finally, again, if they have any further questions or if they want to discuss anything live in more detail, we can do that. They can schedule time directly on my calendar. But the beauty here is that it doesn't have to be, right? This information can be passed along asynchronously and in a more timely manner to speed up that sales process. So when we're ready, we go ahead and give this a name, AssetMule for Gong. We save it as a live asset in here. I always preview these assets ahead of time just to make sure that everything looks good, everything working, in the asset. And then when I'm ready, I go ahead and share that asset with my prospect. There's various different options here. You can share it as a link. You can share it as a link in a screenshot, a link in an animated screenshot. I love the animated screenshot. I think, what we've seen is it drives the most engagement and traffic to the page. So what that looks like is you just click on it, it copies it to your clipboard. And then when you're sending that follow-up email to your prospect, you just paste it in and they'll see, it's got the Gong logo, it's got, their name in there, the video. As I said, that tends to drive more traffic to the page. And then they can share that along their team. And as they're doing so, every interaction that happens on that asset gets tracked by AssetMule in real time. So let's say I'm the prospect and I click through to that page. I may, start by watching that video that I created for them. And then, maybe I go and kind of look through that interactive product demo here. And then maybe I, click through some of these links here, like the case study, for instance, and maybe the comparison page, right? And then you'll see I have some, just example links here. Those would be links to real assets. And then finally, maybe I need to book a meeting to discuss something further. So I click the book a meeting button. And the reason why I click through this is just to show you how everything gets tracked. So now in my email inbox, I get an email saying, hey, somebody just viewed your AssetMule for Gong asset. But then I can also dive into all the interactions that just happened on that page. So in a second here, we'll see that somebody viewed the asset, then somebody clicked on the video, and then they clicked on the embed, which is that interactive demo. Then they clicked on the case study and the comparative comparison page. And finally, they booked a meeting, or maybe they forwarded that asset on to somebody else and that person clicked on the video and some of these other things. And as a salesperson, you're starting to get some real-time information here that like this thing is moving along, right? It was first my prospect that looked at it and then they sent it to their VP and the VP sent it to the CFO and the CFO clicked on that ROI calculator. And we start to get some real buying signals here and understand what's going on behind those closed doors. Again, we're not in the room 80% of the time, right? So now we actually get some visibility into what's happening when we're not in the room. So that's really the demo today and the use case. And I'm gonna now hop back to the meeting here and stop sharing my screen and open it up for any questions. I can dive into anything in more detail as well.
Yeah, folks, if you do have any questions, go and add them to the comments section. This is the time where we dive in and answer any questions, address any concerns, listen to any insights that you might have. So this is the time. Justin, I was just thinking a lot about the multi-threading that you started off kind of speaking to. And let's just think about the old world. And we'll rewind a little bit. In the old world, perhaps you went to a trade show to learn about technology, right? Or a particular product. You'd get brochures, right? And you would then bring them back to your office, hand those things over, right, to your manager or colleagues, and then you review those materials, right? And so that idea of multi-threading is not again, shocker, right? Not a new concept, right? It's about the technology and the way that we do these things, right? The fundamentals in sales have always been the same since we were selling sand, as or water or whatever was being
Salt,
sold back when
sugar.
we, sugar, right? When we were back in the days in more tribal settings, etc. Fundamentals very, very, very similar. So that's why I think some of the best salespeople I've known could really dive into the human condition and use that to help them navigate a sale. But back to this example, you multi-threaded, but you handed paper, right? You handed brochures, that sort of stuff. And then we moved into a world where the industry was growing and you had salespeople coming to your office to pitch you, right? Like I remember when my career started, we did that outside sales thing, right? And that's how it was, right? You went, presented your solution. It was up to you as a salesperson to do that in a in-person setting. And so that might consist of a pitch deck, right? You still might hand out materials. I can't tell you how many times we would be prepping for a great meeting and we would have one pagers that we would show up, introduce ourselves, hand it to every stakeholder, right? Because there was information that stakeholder was going to gather, whether they were paying attention or not. It was much easier to capture attention when you didn't have distractions on the screen like we do these days. So just some things to consider in the multi-threading. And then now we live in a world where, we're doing some outbound meetings and those sort of things. We're doing these in-person meetings, but it's happening at a less frequent cadence because of a couple of things. Because we can do more. Before we couldn't do as much. We didn't have the infrastructure to collaborate and multi-thread and make decisions and learn and all that stuff. All the things that have happened over the last couple of decades in technology has led us to this point where we're doing these meetings largely online, and we are now, due to the remote work stuff, right? Even if you have a hybrid environment, and even if you're in the same office, you're still slacking someone something, right? Or Microsoft Teams or whatever, right? So these digital formats are really, really key to not only enabling your champion, like Justin was referring to, and helping with that multi-threading behind the scenes, right? So that buyer enablement kind of focus, but you as a salesperson being able to understand what are the prospects, or which prospects are the ones that are most relevant to you, and here's what I should focus on, right? And over time, we'll be able to dig in a little deeper. Kieran, thank you so much. You had a comment and a question. Okay. For sellers using systems like Salesforce and Outreach to prioritize who they contact, which signals they jump on, what integrations are available as to not add another tool to monitor? Really great question.
Great question. So the short answer is we don't have integrations with Salesforce or Outreach yet today. But these are sort of top of the list in terms of the integrations, and integrations are a key part of our product roadmap for the very reason that you mentioned. You will get those email notifications in terms of engagement in your email, so you'll be able to sort of access it in one tool or channel that you already use. But then, as you saw, the rest of those today live in AssetMule, in the AssetMule sort of stats section of a particular asset. But that's exactly the type of integration that we have in mind. A good example is Salesforce, right? You go to a contact profile, and there's kind of two ways that we're thinking about this integration. One is make the AssetMule team template library available right from Salesforce, right? Or HubSpot, if you're using that as a CRM, so that you actually, as a salesperson, don't have to go into AssetMule to generate these. You can actually do that from a contact profile. We also would love to do dynamic variables where, because you're on that contact profile, it auto-populates the logo and auto-populates the prospect's name and fills in some information so that they can create, again, the salesperson can create the asset right from where they live, which is Salesforce and Outreach and tools like that, right? So that's the one use case of the integration. The other one is exactly as you mentioned. These tools already are tracking engagement with your prospects in various different ways. There's no reason why AssetMule shouldn't also be fed into the activity feed for that particular contact or that account right in Salesforce. So that's very top of mind for us. Not available today, but hopefully in the near future, we'll be delivering that. It's definitely something that we want to do. George and I, we're both salespeople ourselves, but also SDR leaders. So we know the tool overload, that challenge that exists out there, and the more that we can be where you guys already live, the better.
Yeah, Kieran, I was going to ask you. Oh, great. Love the idea of embedded asset libraries, less context switching. Got it. Yeah, actually, that was what I was going to ask you is what do you have any requests? I know you're a product marketer. From your perspective out there, how would you want it to be integrated? I know you like that idea of having it live in there. Is there anything else? For example, is it, we've also heard a lot about Slack, right? Building integrations into Slack. So forget about, Salesforce, for example, right? Like that you could be able to pull something in a more dynamic, prescriptive way and send that directly to the salesperson. So through Slack, let's just assume that they had Slack, Teams, something like that. What do you think about that idea? And by the way, we'll go ahead and connect with you offline. Would love to gather any other insight or feedback that you have regarding these types of integrations. And just to say, like, we're very, very focused on making product marketers like yourself, Kieran, but just in general, life easier, right? So any
Marketing
ideas that you
automation.
have?
Marketing automation tools is another one that we've heard.
Yep.
Marketo, Pardot, and all those tools makes a lot of sense, for sure.
Yeah, HubSpot.
Yep. One thing I just wanted to mention quickly, George, as you were talking through sort of the evolution of how sales has gone, I think a number of things have led to this sort of like more asynchronous selling environment. And one of them is COVID, right? I think we realized that you can actually still sell even when you're not there in person. Now, one point of clarification, and thinking back to our customer who is experiencing that faster sales cycle, it's not necessarily that meetings aren't happening, right? Like for instance, the CFO still may want to jump on a meeting, to discuss. Looking at the asset alone might not get them to the point where they're ready to pull the trigger on a decision, right? But the feedback that we got from this particular customer is that CFO came to the meeting with a lot more knowledge about what it was, right, that they were looking to purchase and what the implementation plan was and all these things. And it was a much quicker sort of conversation, much more pointed conversation without having to fill them in on all the background, do the demo, talk about the use cases and providing the case studies and all that stuff. So I just wanted to clarify that like a lot of these meetings still happen. It's just that they're more streamlined because these stakeholders are coming into the meeting with much more knowledge on sort of the background, what's been discussed so far, and maybe with much more pointed questions to ask to push the conversation forward.
Awesome. Thanks again to Kieran for your feedback and questions. And folks, as we go into the last minute or so here of today's office hours, again, if you do have any questions, comments, integration requests, these sort of things, please let us know. Just go ahead and comment on the comment wall and we can speak to it. It also allows us to understand, what are your needs out there, right? Because again, we're keenly focused on solving your needs, your issues, and trying to make your lives much, much easier we're all facing times in the market these days where things are drastically changing, new technologies that have been introduced, organizations, leaderships asking us to do more or stay the same, or provide the output that we are right now, yet with less resources, less staff, these sort of things. So we got to figure this out, right? We have to figure out how to be more efficient. And although tools are really, really important, I just wanted to point out again the human element, being able to make sure that we're aligning product marketing with our friends in sales, and being able to keep up with the needs and the requests that they have in a way that is sustainable for us as product marketers, but is impactful for the entire organization. So
And get sales to actually use those
yeah,
assets, to
yeah,
Kieran's point, right? I think
yeah,
like, being where they are is a
yeah.
key part of that, right? Being in their workflow is a key part of making sure that they're able to find those assets. That's a huge topic area of, salespeople always not knowing where to find the assets, right? Putting it right in front of them where they live is a great way to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole around asset management capabilities, but I can say this. We've done hundreds upon hundreds of calls with primarily product marketers or sales enablement professionals, or go to market professionals in general, salespeople, and it still baffles me with all the great tools out there. That's still an issue. So, figuring that out end to end is going to be a great challenge for our industry and our space and our practice. So, without further ado, I know we're a couple minutes over. Thank you so much to you folks out there for tuning in to our weekly office hours. This is completely live, and so we like to have a lot of fun. That the PDFs, you know what? Yeah, absolutely, brother,
That's
absolutely.
going on our website for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we got to
take
take
a
that, right?
screenshot of
Yeah,
it.
let's do that. Let's highlight that one. Let's highlight.
There you go.
There we go. And one thing that we can do is maybe we can do like a guitar session, kind of jam session one day. We can do like I don't know, some messaging and positioning for sales enablement assets,
Yep.
tunes or something. But again, thank you so much to Kieran and everyone else who's tuned in here today on LinkedIn. If you are not an existing user of AssetMule, thank you for tuning in and wanting to learn more. But check it out. It's totally free to check out. You can and get to value, by the way, and get to being able to use it, right? So it's not one of those things where you can just get a taste and that's it. You can use it end to end right now for free. We have that free plan. Obviously, you can upgrade for more usage, but again, it's free. If you are an existing customer, thank you so much. Really appreciate you checking us out. If you're not following us on LinkedIn, go ahead, and if you like the content, of course, click on that follow button. Tell us what you want to hear. Let us know what content you're enjoying by engaging with it, liking it, sharing it, that kind of stuff. We really focus a lot. We're a small team over here, and we invest a lot of time, heart, and effort into LinkedIn, and trying to share as much content and resources with you as possible that we hope will be helpful and make your days out there as we're staring at LinkedIn's feeds all day. But without further ado, see you next week. Thank you so much and have a wonderful, wonderful day.